Second installment of the Vipasana retreat. I think we can start with just a short review of some of the things we covered yesterday before we move forward. So remember there we have two similar words here, Vipasana, which is a Sanskrit word, and Vipasana, which is the Pali word. In both of those words, of course, the VI means higher, superior, and Pasana or Pasana means to see. So Vipasana or Vipassana means higher seeing, seeing beyond. So what we're talking about here is gaining insight into reality. So often the word Vipassana or Vipassana is translated into English as insight or sometimes special insight. And what we're talking about is gaining a insight into reality. Now, why is this important? The Buddhist assertion is that now we currently have a distorted view of reality, that we don't see things clearly now, and that actually leads to mental afflictions such as attachment and aversion, and that's driving our behaviour and resulting in a lot of suffering often. So if we want to overcome our mental afflictions and the suffering that they produce, then we need to go to the underlying root cause. And again, the Buddhist assertion, the underlying root cause is our distorted view of reality. And we saw yesterday there are at least 4 ways in which we distort reality. The first the first level is that we tend to see things as rather stable and unchanging. Whereas we know, at least intellectually, that things are not like that things are constantly changing. But in our behaviour, our instinctive habit is to see things as rather stable. Of course, this is out of sync with reality, and thereby, that's why, by seeing things in that way, we often get frustrated when things change, disappointed when they don't stay the same, because our instinctive sense is out of sync with actual reality, that things are constantly changing. Then there's also another way in which we distort is that we tend to see often, particularly our pleasurable experiences, as in the nature of happiness. That, if I want to be happy, I need more pleasure, and that thing will maybe satisfy me, maybe will fulfill me. So we tend to see things in that way, and then we often grasp onto these pleasant experiences, hoping they're going to satisfy us and fulfill us. So the second insight here is an insight into what's in Sanskrit called Dukkha, is to come to realize the nature of, or the type of existence we find ourselves in, that pleasant experiences are not really going to satisfy us, and that even underlying both our pleasant and unpleasant experiences, there's something deeper going on. And that is that our mind is contaminated by the mental afflictions. And as long as our mind is contaminated by mental afflictions, there's always a potential for some sort of suffering to arise in our life. And so this is the deepest meaning of the word dukkha. So if we can come to realize this dukkha, and come to realize actually the situation we find ourselves in, then we're going to stop looking out there for happiness, and we're going to realize that this underlying source of both our happiness and suffering is within our own mind, and then we'll turn our attention to our own mind and look to the sources of happiness and suffering, and overcome the sources of suffering and cultivate the sources of happiness. And thereby we can have an aspiration to be liberated from mental afflictions and suffering. And then the third insight, or the third distortion, the third way in which we distort things, is we often feel there's this autonomous self here. That somewhere here is a me, and that me seems to be something more than just the body and the mind. Seems to be something, a third thing, this me here, that has a body and has a mind. And this me seems very substantial, very what's called self-sufficient. Seems to exist on its own, doesn't seem to depend on anything else to exist. And that's how we see ourselves as a person. And from a Buddhist perspective, this is an overinflated false sense of me. This is what's called grasping onto self. And because of that, then mental afflictions and suffering. So the third insight we are trying to cultivate is this insight into no self, to come to realize we do not exist in this overinflated solid way. Of course, we're not saying no self means no me. We're just trying to realize how we exist, and realizing no self is to realize we do not exist in this overinflated, substantial, solid way that we feel we do exist in that way. And then the fourth distortion, and that's the one we've been focusing on later yesterday afternoon, we're going to mostly focus on today, is that we believe that there's an independent objective world there and an independent subjective me here. So we sort of grasp onto this subject-object duality. And again, from a Buddhist assertion, is that this is a false view of reality. That there is no independent me, independent objective world. That we live in a world of interdependency. And that realization is this realization of emptiness that we started to look at yesterday afternoon. So again, emptiness means, it doesn't mean, oh, everything's empty, therefore nothing exists. Emptiness means, you should be asking, empty of what? What is things empty of? And what things are empty of is independent existence. Nothing exists independently. That's what emptiness means. And we looked at that from the perspective of the fact that things are empty of independent existence because they are dependent arisings, dependent phenomena. And so we're going to have a little bit more of a look at that this morning, and we're going to do more meditation on it. But what I'd like to do now is go back to the 3 marks of existence: impermanence, dukkha, no self. In particular, the first one, impermanence. And we're going to go back to that meditation that we did yesterday, the one where we're scanning the body, noticing sensations in the body. And I think this is a very good starting point for Vipasana practice, because it's a very simple meditation. And if we do that with focus, it can be very, very effective. If we can really start to simply experientially see everything changing within the body, then that's going to have a very positive impact in our life. Because if we start to see things as changing moment by moment, simply within the body, and we do that with focus, then that will start to permeate our day. We'll start to experientially see things as changing moment by moment, and that's going to really reduce our attachments and aversions, because there's nothing then for attachment to grab hold of or aversion to push against. So simply doing this will already have a very positive impact on our life if we do it with focus. Also, another very good reason for doing this as a beginning Vipasana practice is that most of us, or many of us at least, live in our conceptual mind. We're constantly thinking. We're caught up in our conceptual minds all the time. And so much so that we're often tormented by our own mind. We're often the slaves of our mind. That we're often overwhelmed by all of these thoughts, emotions, and memories. And then often we don't know how to deal with all this stuff. So what we do, of course, if it's unpleasant, we just try and suppress it. And by suppressing this mental activity, of course, often it just manifests as physical illness, and then we project a lot of this negativity onto the people around us. So we really tend to be the slaves of our mind in our modern society. So if we do this scanning the body, this is very good for this, because it gets us out of our conceptual mind and into the body. And most of our conceptual thinking is about the past and the future. And from a Buddhist perspective, living in the past and the future is a source of a lot of unhappiness, and some modern studies are coming to the very same conclusion. The physical sensations in the body, of course, are only happening in the present moment. So by scanning and focusing on them, not only do we get out of our conceptual mind, but we also get out of the past and the future into the present moment. So this also is going to be very helpful for many of us who tend to be very much tormented by our minds. So that's what I'd like to do, is to do that same meditation we did yesterday, where we're going to simply scan through the body, noticing what's going on in the body. This time I won't be guiding it, so we know the steps from yesterday, just serially going through the body. Just one or two more comments with that is, when you're doing this scan, and you can do it at your own pace, you can do it very slowly like we did yesterday, or if you find it works better by going a little bit more quickly, that's fine as well. So in a session you can scan a couple of times serially. So you can determine your own pace, how fast or slow you scan. And then what you can do as well in this meditation is, when you get to a part of the body, and if you don't notice any sensation, just stay there a bit longer, maybe another 30 seconds or minute. Just stay there a bit longer and intently just look there. Or if you get to a part of the body and there's just very solid sensation, a very big solid sensation, same, just stay there for a while and see if it stays like that or not, and then move on. So that's something you can do as well. There was a question.
If there is like a strong sensation, and I tend to think about it and have a hard time to stay in other places of the body.
To think about it.
Like to investigate a strong sensation.
You mean not to go serially, or?
I'm asking,
Yeah.
If I have a hard time to go serially because I have, I don't know, pain that I can focus on. So should I resist that, or?
Yeah, I mean, of course, ideally we try to get in a good, comfortable posture so we don't have overwhelming pain, because if we have overwhelming pain, then of course that will pull our attention. So that's why in the start it's good to adopt a good posture so that we can reduce that.
Not necessarily pain, but let's say if I have like, a strong sensation that is like, that I tend to go to, should I resist?
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing the serial scan, if that's the way you're doing it, then yes, I would generally try to resist that, because the thing is that that's what we do now. As soon as there's not even a strong pain, as soon as something happens in the body, our attention goes there, and so basically our mind is dictating to us what to do. So so if we can resist that temptation, then we will be now more in control of our own mind and not at the control of our own mind. So it's good to get into that habit of not every time there's some stimulus we go there. And that's what we do in our life now, we're focusing on something, we're having some conversation, and then our mobile phone and SMS comes, and immediately we're there, I mean, this is not very good. So we should really develop some ability to be the masters of our mind and not be the slaves of our mind. And on that point, before we start, make sure you switch off the mobile phones.
And there are just a few people who weren't here yesterday, so
right.
Maybe you can give more of an explanation of how to describe before.
Okay. So in this meditation, of course, we're going to prepare the body and mind, so I'll be guiding through that. And then with this practice, we are simply scanning the body from the crown of the head to the tips of the feet, and we're just going very slowly and just noticing sensations in the area. So yesterday I started by the crown of the head, and then slowly moving to the face, to the back of the head, down to the neck, and then we moved over to the left shoulder, the left forearm, down to the left upper arm, down to the left forearm, down to the left hand, then back up to the right shoulder, down the right arm, down to the right hand slowly. Then we moved upper back, middle back, lower back, and then upper chest, middle chest, abdomen, and then slowly down left leg, knee, down to the foot, and then back here, down the right leg, down to the foot. So that was the way we followed. If you prefer to go down the right and then the left, that's okay. So you don't have to follow the same exact way of following that I did, as long as you manage to scan every part of the body. Often what happens is, as we become more competent in this, then often people scan down like both arms at the same time, the front and the back at the same time and both legs at the same time. But I think as a beginner, it's good to do it in very small bits. And then slowly, as we become better at this practice, we can start to scan a little bit more quickly. And then you may find that, yesterday we scanned through the body. It took us maybe 10 or 15 minutes to go through once. You may find that you can go through in a matter of a minute eventually, because you can really... But if where mindfulness is not very good, then I would suggest to really start slowly. And again, as I said, if you get to any point in the body where you notice no sensation, or you notice a very solid sensation, just stop there for a while, for another 30 seconds or a minute, and just observe closely, and then move on. Now, there may be some parts where you notice no sensations, even after staying there 30 seconds, then move on. So don't just stay there for the rest of the session. So just stay there a bit longer, still don't notice anything, then move on. So we can do like that.
מישהו חנה פה עם סקודה לבנה, מספרה 34-895-54? זה שבועיים? לא, היא אומרת שאולי זה שלי. זה של בעלי, אני לא יודעת את המספר. אז...
יכול להיות שחסמת כניסה לבית?
אסור לחנוך פה, מאוד כועסים ועל מקום שאנחנו חונים פה, מעדיפים שנחנה פה בים.
פה כאן היה קרוב באחד הבתים, במעלה של המזרגות.
זה ממש בית. לא חסמתי את האינטרנט. חסמתי את השעון. שהוא יציע את זה. סורי. Can you guide us anyway?
Okay. Since there's people here, it was easy, yes. Okay, so I'll do some guiding. You don't have to follow the guiding. If you prefer to go at your own speed, then do your own thing. Otherwise, you can follow what I say. Okay?
If you have advice if you get caught in like if you don't do it.
If you get distracted.
Yeah.
Well, like anything, is if you get distracted, just notice that. Don't get upset. Just be happy that you've noticed that you've distracted, and then come back into the body where from the last point. So if you're on the left shoulder and then you started thinking about breakfast or something, then come back to the left shoulder and continue.
You don't have to start from the beginning. You don't have to start from the beginning.
Well, actually, as a beginner, if you started from the beginning, you maybe never scan the whole body. If we're honest. Okay, let's do the practice. We can begin by preparing the body, setting it into a good posture. So keeping the back nice and straight. And then simply allowing the entire body to become completely relaxed, completely at ease. And using the out-breath to relax and release any tightness or tension in any part of the body. And bringing your awareness to the area of your face. And soften and relax all the muscles in the face. The mouth and jaws soft and relaxed. And all the muscles around the eyes soft and relaxed. And then allow the breathing to settle into its natural rhythm. Not trying to control or regulate the breath in any way. And simply allowing the breathing to flow naturally and effortlessly. And then preparing the mind, setting it in a state of ease and relaxation. So not dwelling in the past, not anticipating the future. Simply allowing the mind to come to rest in the present moment. Through focusing on the sensations of the breath throughout the body. Wherever you most easily notice any sensations associated with the breathing. So then we can begin the Vipasana meditation. And again, we are simply focusing on our own body and observing the reality of our own body. So we can scan the body serially. And you can follow my guidance, or if you want to go at your own pace, then you can follow your own speed, as you like. So bring your attention to the crown of your head and simply become aware of any sensations in that area. and observe them directly with bare attention, meaning without commentary, without visualizing. Simply observe sensations directly. And then moving your attention down to the area of the face, observing any sensations in the area of the face. Moving the attention round to the back of the head. And moving slowly down to the area of the neck. And then moving slowly over to the left shoulder. Down to the left upper arm. The left elbow. Moving down to the left forearm. And then finally down to the left hand. Right down to the fingertips. And then moving back up to the right shoulder. The right upper arm. The right elbow. Down to the right forearm.